Hello, everybody. I am Andrew here from Andrew's Meteorology, and I'm going to be presenting to you a presentation on beach safety and hazards. And the title of this presentation is Respect the Ocean and is a comprehensive guide to beach safety and hazards that you can watch before you go to the beach or even take with you. This is put together by me, Andrew Wagaman, and most of the information in this presentation is from the National Weather Service Outreach Program and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And I also do use another source for a statistic, which you'll see in a couple slides from now, from the U.S. Lifesaving Association. So hopping right into it here, let's understand what the surf zone is before we start talking about the different currents, as most of the currents that we'll be talking about occur in this zone. So, safety begins with awareness. The surf zone is defined as the area of water between the beach and shore and the first line of breaking waves. So, basically, this light blue or white-ish region is the surf zone. And you can see like the different currents, rip currents and longshore currents all occur in this zone. And we'll be talking about those later in this presentation. So many injuries occur here due to dynamically changing conditions. Staying alert is the key to enjoying your visit while maintaining safety. And as they always say, respect the power of the ocean. So there's always an advantage to having a lifeguard on the beach. So make sure you always swim near a lifeguard, as I always try and emphasize. And statistics from the U.S. Lifesaving Association prove that guarded beaches are exponentially safer. Looking at the statistic there on the left side of your screen, there's a 1 in 18 million chance of drowning when there's a lifeguard on the beach. So, I mean, it is exponentially safer when there's a lifeguard there. And a couple tips of advice. Make sure you talk to a lifeguard upon arrival to know the day's specific water conditions. And keep in mind, lifeguards are trained professionals to spot hazards you might miss, like shifting sandbars. And they can also perform rescues as they are trained to do that and observe people who may be in danger. So that's also why it's exponentially safer to swim on a beach where there's a lifeguard. And if you're ever in an instance where there is no lifeguard, make sure you don't go to the beach alone. And make sure you always have somebody with you or like some sort of adult with you. Basically, if any sort of incident would occur, they they can contact emergency services to send somebody out there to perform a rescue on the individual in danger. So, and one thing about that, always make sure you know where you're precisely located on the beach and what beach you're on so they're able to locate you. And I'll emphasize that later in this presentation. So always make sure and check the forecasts before you go to the beach. Always review official National Weather Service surf zone forecasts and beach advisories if any are issued. Even storms far out at sea can cause dangerous waves. Keep that in mind. They don't always have to be close to the shore to cause dangerous waves. They can be way far out into the ocean and still have an effect on the beach. So make sure and gear up, have an approved life jacket and flotation device. Never enter the water without a plan or flotation aid. And make sure you know your spot. Note the beach address and location of life stations. Seconds definitely count when calling 911 for an emergency. So let's look at wave power and shore break. So the power of an ocean wave, this is hard to believe, but it is true. The power of an ocean wave can be equivalent to the force of a car. Even small waves can hit you with the force of a vehicle. Getting pinned to the sand can cause serious trauma. So if you get hit hard enough with the wave, even small waves, they can cause serious injuries and trauma. Shore break occurs when waves break quickly and steeply directly on the sand. This is a primary cause of neck and spinal injuries, so another form of trauma. And make sure you keep your hands in front of you at all times when in breaking waves to protect your head and neck. Looking at this graphic from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as well as the National Weather Service, this highlights a couple additional forms of dangerous waves. Plunging waves can slam you into the ocean floor, and surging waves can easily knock you over. And keep in mind, even small waves can be very dangerous and cause injuries. And as the saying goes, stay dry when the waves are high. So looking at some high surf hazards, high surf moves large logs and debris and erodes beaches with extreme power, and that usually takes some time to erode a beach. Waves can rush well above typical high tide lines, knocking people off jetties or rocks. The pull of high surf makes it nearly impossible for people to stay upright, leading to a drowning risk. And one thing I like to emphasize here is to always stay alert. Never turn your back on the ocean, as conditions could change in an instant. Sneaker waves, or as they always say, the silent surge. These are potentially deadly waves that surge much further up the beach than expected. They can strike after 10 to 20 minutes of calm smaller waves, and these are common on northwest coasts but can happen anywhere. They can run up to 150 feet or 45 meters onto the dry beach. And the rule of thumb here is to watch the water for at least 20 minutes before relaxing. And here's another detailed graphic from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as well as the National Weather Service. Some of the dangers to keep in mind of sneaker waves are beachgoers can be swept into the ocean. Powerful waves can roll logs and heavy debris along the beach, knocking over or pinning down unsuspecting beachgoers. And this can also result in cold water immersion, which can be very deadly. And some tips to keep in mind is to arrive knowing the local weather, surf, and tide forecast. Never turn your back on the ocean, as, like I previously noted, conditions could change in an instant. And watch the waves from higher ground for 20 minutes before moving closer to the water, continuing to watch until you leave. AKA, respect the power of the ocean. So, looking at heavy logs, debris, and cold water, sneaker waves can lift and roll logs weighing hundreds of pounds. People have been crushed by being caught under these logs during wave action. Stay off and well clear of large logs near the surf line. And keep in mind, cold water paralysis can also result if the temperatures are frigid, especially in the Northwest. Cold water paralysis can infect the limbs within minutes. And sand and gravel deposited in clothes by waves can feel as heavy as concrete, making escape impossible. And here's the most famous current that we all know are rip currents, aka the invisible pull. So, rip currents don't actually pull you under, they pull you out into the ocean. Never swim against a current. Escape by swimming along the shoreline towards breaking waves. And if you're ever caught in a rip current, don't panic. Yell or wave if stuck. Never try a rescue without a flotation device. And I have to reemphasize, they don't pull you under, so don't panic. They just pull you out into the ocean. That's why I always emphasize to swim on a beach where there's a lifeguard, because there's always an advantage to swimming on a beach with a lifeguard. So here's a graphic from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as well as the National Weather Service that talks a little bit about rip currents and shows a little diagram of how rip currents actually work. So rip currents are powerful currents of water moving away from the shore. They can sweep even the strongest swimmer away from the shore, and if at all possible, swim near a lifeguard. And you can pause this video and save this infographic so you can take with you if you're going to the beach this summer, as this is a very important thing to understand. So looking at coastal and tidal currents, longshore currents are basically strong flows of water running parallel to the coast. They push you into unsafe areas like piers or rip currents. And if you're ever caught in a longshore current, walk back along the beach or allow the current to carry you until you can safely exit. Tidal currents are caused by the daily rise and fall of tides. They're strongest near inlets, river mouths, or estuaries. And the danger here to keep in mind are maximum flow to sea can carry swimmers out very quickly. Avoid swimming near inlets. Looking at some secondary beach hazards, we see lightning, UV radiation, and harmful algal blooms. As they always say, when thunder roars, head indoors. Beaches offer no protection from lightning. UV radiation is very intense at the beach due to sand and water reflection. Reapply sunscreen hourly, or else you'll get very burned. Harmful algal blooms, for example red tide, can cause respiratory issues and skin irritation. That's why I always say, and I emphasized on the last slides, to always check your forecasts and make sure that there's no beach advisories issued for the beach that you're going to. So I appreciate all of you watching this presentation to the very end. Make sure you stay safe, stay informed, and respect the ocean. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to private message the page of Andrews Meteorology on Facebook and Instagram, or even email us at andrewsmeteorology@gmail.com. For more information, you can also visit weather.gov/safety/beach, as there's more information on there as well. And here's some of the image sources that I used in this presentation. And that concludes my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have an enjoyable time at the beach. Bye, everybody.